As a new investor, it's hard to envision the various steps or stages that come with growth within the industry. Here's the transparency of being a beginner, intermediate, and experienced level investor from behind the scenes of what deals look like. Back at it.
Yeah.
At the Lounge.
Ooh,
That sounded so good.
That was so good.
Okay, so we should.
can just wrap up.
We're done.
That's all we have to do.
That's all we have to do. I
Incredible.
wonder if that was like sounds as pitched well as it.
Oh, it did. No, I think it did. Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Your
today-
regular Whitney Houston, the Whitney Houston of mortgage. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about different profiles of borrowers, right?
Yeah. And we're generalizing, but at the same time, I think a lot of people are just trying to kind of figure out, okay, when can I take the next step in my investor career?
Yeah.
I guess is maybe, when am I still a newbie? What levels me up to, knowing what the hell I'm talking about? And when can I go swim in the deep end?
Yeah.
That's kind of where my headspace went.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that this world is as easy to understand. Not everyone dabbles in this space, and everyone's, I feel like, constantly learning. Like, we are still constantly learning. And so I think with that, we just want to kind of give a visual of, in our eyes, when we're working with clients, when do we still see people as, learning and developing and whatnot? And when can we turn this into monopoly, as I sometimes joke. So I had a great client a couple months ago that brand new investor. Just started, actually came to one of our events at the beginning of the year. We did that like game show concept, which was really cool.
That was
and
cool.
So she came to that and learned a ton, and ended up setting up a home equity line of credit because she was like, okay, how do I do this? And I'm like, well, what about money? And she was like, don't got it. And I'm like, well, we'll find money. Hold on. Let's dig a little deeper. And so she was willing to kind of put her home equity line of credit on the line to start her first steps, which I think is fairly normal. And from there, she found a place over in North Linden, did an incredible job flipping the property.
Yeah.
So she brought her, I think it qualified still at 75%, and 75% of the after repaired value. It qualified for 10% down a purchase price. So she got into it with not a ton of money out of pocket. And I mean, incredible job. I was super, super proud of her.
Yeah.
And it sold within, I think, 48 hours.
Wow.
Because she did such an incredible job. And it had, again, we had Brooke on a different podcast, and it's sometimes those things that just catch your eye. And like, she just had a couple little paint choices, and the staging was done really well. And so it kind of amplified the room, and it was a big open concept. I mean, it was just, I was very impressed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And so they made handsomely on it. And now they're very, very excited. And so I'm trying to like hold on to the leashes because they're ready to grab another and another and another. And it's like, okay, guys, slow down the pace of play. And I think we want that first one to be really good. But I always get a little nervous when it's maybe too good, because no matter how many deals you do, there's going to be ones that have a little bit more hair to it. And I think they got a really good one on the first one. And I'm just trying to kind of level set those expectations so that they're grounded for this next transaction.
And do you think, I mean, so are they trying to go after multiple deals at once, or are they still focused on doing one at a time?
I still think they're focused at doing one at a time, and I support that.
Yeah.
I think as a newer investor, to take two on at once, they're both still W-2 employed. So to take on two projects and manage, potentially two crews of contractors, maybe even, the good thing is they're only looking in North Linden. And so that allows for, if they had two at once, that they would both be in the same location. That would probably be the only way that I would be like,
yeah,
yay, let's do another one kind of thing. But yeah, I think they're slow playing this a little bit. I could definitely, especially with the excitement they felt on this one, could see them wanting to do two at once. So just trying to kind of ease this in, making sure that I assist them in kind of making sure that these deals are good enough. Because I think they're still in the newbie stage where they're like, okay, this one seems like it has legs. And I'm like, okay, you're going to make like 10 grand. And they're like, no, we're not. Yeah. Which it's good that they can, kind of say, hey, 10 grand isn't going to satisfy us. It's not going to make this worth our time and energy. And so we've kind of come up with a baseline of like, they want to be in that like $25,000 to $35,000 range. And so it makes it nice for me because it's like, okay, they send me a deal. One, it should already hit those numbers because I definitely am like, do the numbers in advance. But secondarily, I kind of triple check those numbers and say, hey, this one you're making 15. Like, Why are we even looking at this?
Yeah.
Or, hey, this one seems like it has a space. Now, we're never here to check your ARV. We're never here to check your rehab budget. Like, that's not on us.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that on the back end, you've walked the property, your contractors walked the property, you've talked to a realtor or someone that is versed in running after repaired values. But always looking at those numbers and make sure it's hitting the goals that they've put in place. So love it.
Do you think, like, if you were to compare like a newer investor to like a mid-tier investor, what do you think differentiates the two?
I think it's sometimes having two deals at once. I think you were kind of starting with that is like, if you can do two deals at once, I think you've moved out of the newbie stage. If you're still doing one, I mean, there's no disrespect. Like, I still think if you're doing one at a time, that's either just someone that wants to do this part-time.
Yeah.
Or they're just still new. And there's nothing wrong with that. I support that. You could do that all day long.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I have a couple investors that they've done probably 10 in the last 2 years, which I would call that experienced.
Agreed.
But then they do really only focus on one at a time. And there's something to be said for that because, I mean, craftsmanship is definitely lacking in some of the rehab space. I mean, I live in a rehab that I bought from a flipper, and we had to do a lot of stuff to it to make it livable. So, I mean...
Well, and Brooke highlighted that on our last podcast is like quality is so important. And if you don't have the quality, that could definitely bite you in the ass, moving forward. So, yeah, I think maybe, it's a little bit of maybe two things. It's how many deals at once or maybe how many deals in the year, and kind of looking at that. But, okay, mid-grade. Like, you're not a newbie anymore, but you're not, an expert in any, shape or fashion. What is there a deal that you've ran across recently that kind of fits in that mold?
In that mid space, I mean, probably like one of my guys that, so they've done probably 5 or 10 in the last 2 years. I would put that in that mid-level tier. You're going to get really good pricing. If you've done at least 5 flips in the last 2 years, chances are you're going to get pretty good pricing from a lot of our lenders. That's going to be, I would say, pretty top-tier pricing.
Yeah, sweet spot.
You're not going to be doing super creative stuff. We'll table that for what we would call like a top tier borrower.
Yeah.
But as far as the off the rack kind of hard money lending, you're going to get the best pricing, I would say, if you've done 5 in the last 2 years. And I mean, I've had a few of those where they're just solid single family homes. They go in at maybe 130 to 150,000. They're putting 50 to 60 into it, and ARV is 350 to 400. Yeah. I mean, that's a great deal. Like, that's a lot of money to make.
Well, and those deals run through our system
so well,
so smooth.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we already have all their docs on file. We already have all their experience verified. Maybe they've even worked with the lender. We've done a couple deals with the same lender. I mean, they just move very quickly and smoothly and simply, and it allows for the investor to focus on what's important, which is the projects that they have on hand and the projects they're trying to find, rather than getting bogged down with any kind of lending concern.
And, sometimes people think like, oh, I've got this deal for $45,000 and it needs $80,000. That's only $125,000. That's got to be an easy... No, it's not.
No,
it's not. Don't buy $45,000 houses. I mean, you can, and we will help, but...
and just to specify, what is the problem with that deal? There's 2 issues with that deal.
Primarily the price point of the purchase price of the house.
And
the fact that the rehab budget is like twice the price of the house.
Exactly.
If that's happening, you're going to have challenges with lending.
Yeah. Not impossible.
It's not impossible.
Just not fun. It's just a lot less lenders.
Yeah.
A lot of us asking for favors.
Yeah.
And to be honest, those are not favors we like to ask for.
And I know we're kind of jumping around here, but like kind of back to like that early, like lower, like newbie tier level of investor. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were flabbergasted because I gave a couple of examples, and in one example, which was the deal that they brought me, they had to bring like $25,000 to the table to close on this like $40,000 house between closing costs and all kinds of different stuff.
I knew where you were going with
and
this.
But then I demonstrated to them like, okay, well, if you buy $100,000 house that needs slightly less in rehab, you're bringing the same or less amount of money to the table.
Yeah.
And you're getting a better quality asset after everything's said and done.
Well, and to explain that, it's because the risk of this lower price deal with a ton of rehab is way higher for our lender than this
Yeah.
more well-rounded, simpler concept deal. So
I mean, between closing costs and origination and stuff, for that $40,000 deal, you might pay $15,000 in origination and lender fees. For the $100,000 deal, you might pay $6,500 in origination and lender fees.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And the LTVs are going to be higher for the higher quality properties than those little $40,000 things.
yeah. So our newbie investors, don't go for those. Like,
Yeah.
let's find something well-rounded, solid. We know, with all the confidence that we can give, which is, as much as we can, this is a good deal.
And something that I offer to my clients is like, especially if you're new and you're starting out, like, let's play a little bit. Once you send me a deal, practice. Send me a deal that you see, kind of hopefully maybe it's on the MLS, maybe it's got pictures, or maybe it's from a wholesaler and it's got pictures, but use your talents as a rehabber and figure out, okay, this is the purchase price that I want to offer. This is the rehab budget and this is the ARV, right? You don't have to go walk it. I mean, if you're ready to go walk it. Maybe we turn it into a real deal, but then send me those numbers. I'll work up the loan amount and how that's going to look so that you can really have some more solid numbers to digest. Because a lot of the times, we give back of the napkin math to think about it. But if you're just starting out, you want something a little bit more solid than that. And that's why it's good to give us a call so
I
that
think
we can run those
practicing
numbers.
is great. I mean, again, we're not going to practice forever. We need you to retain that information and please ask questions. But I think seeing a true terms and conditions, a way that we can go through this, it's going to be very duplicatable.
Yeah.
Once we can get that system down, you'll be able to be like, oh, I know where deals traditionally will hit.
Yeah.
And as long as those hit there, then I know to contact Adam and he can get me an official term sheet. I recently, this past month, had an investor. He is growing his portfolio. He typically does BRRRR. So I would say that like 3 months ago, we closed on 2 properties with some fix and flip money. 10% down a purchase. I don't know. We were probably sitting at like 65% of the after repaired value. So we got a really great deal on these.
That's awesome.
Didn't need a ton of rehab. And we just, at the end of this past month, or like now, like I think it was last week, closed on both of these as BRRRRs. So we were putting them in a DSCR loan, no income validation, solely based on the cash flow of the property. And one of them was a perfect BRRRR.
Perfect BRRRR. What's a perfect BRRRR?
Perfect BRRRR is whatever money he put into the hard money loan, he got 100% of that back in the refi.
Yeah, that's
Which doesn't happen often.
It does not.
I try to say it as much as humanly possible because I think social media tends to sell this in a completely different manner. And we like to level set as much as humanly possible. Perfect BRRRRs are not, I mean, it's not that they're not out there. They're just not sitting on every corner.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, if they were, I'd be grabbing them.
Yeah, sure.
So the fact that he had a perfect BRRRR was a big deal. I think you had one a couple months ago. The other one was close. I think he left maybe 6% in the deal, which is still solid. What I tell my clients is as long as you're leaving 5 to 10% of the after repaired value in the deal. So that's, potentially money that you put down on the hard money loan and you're no longer getting that back on the refi. That's still a good deal. Because alternatively, let's say he wanted to buy that property turnkey, he would have put 20% down. So 6%, 20 clearly makes sense.
Yeah.
Now he's going to be buying 3 houses for the price of one with that same cash position. Okay, give me an expert deal.
Yeah.
Tell me like
top tier stuff.
Top tier. Who knows what the hell they're doing?
So the way I want to talk about this is, okay, either yes, you've done tons of deals, or also what is important is you've got a lot of assets. So like, let's say you started doing this a million years ago and you're not carrying any debt on your properties and you've just you look great on paper.
Yeah.
If you're looking good on paper, there's some really cool stuff that we can do. So like, let me give you an example. I am working on a deal right now where somebody wants to buy a commercial property and the commercial property is not performing well. So I've already looked at the tax returns for the property. It is losing money year over year over year, right? When you put a property like that in front of a bank, they are not into it. Nope. In fact, I put it in front of like 4 or 5 banks, and 4 or 5 of them are like, no go. One of my guys, who I love dearly, he is like, well, does he have any other assets? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, how about we just put debt on the other assets and he buys the thing in cash? And I'm like, oh, it's a good idea.
Thank you.
And so that's something really cool that you can do. So, and it's so funny because as I was working on this one, another friend of mine reached out, a lawyer buddy of mine reached out to me and said, hey, if I have a bunch of free and clear properties, can I just put that up as collateral and not have to bring any money to closing when I buy something else? And I said, yes, you can.
Yeah.
So when it rains, it pours, I guess. But that's a really cool thing that a lot of people are not aware of, is the concept of cross-collateralizing multiple properties in order to make a deal work. Like, especially if you're cash poor, but you've got a ton of equity in properties. I mean, that's something that we can look at.
And so what does the financials of that borrower look like?
Yeah, so this guy, he makes probably $300,000 a year. He's got about $800,000 in cash. Yeah. But he has like $5 million in unencumbered houses.
Wow.
And so it's like he needs 1.5 to make this happen. We were going to do, I think, 2 million on a loan amount. So he's going to get a property and $500,000 at closing for filling out some paperwork. Now, he's going to have a big old loan. He's going to have a $2 million loan, but I mean, the cash flow is phenomenal on it. So it should be.
And then I guess just to spin back, what about the commercial property? So you're going to pay it off in cash.
Oh, yeah. What are we going to do? Yeah. So he has some different ideas of how to improve the property. So what we're going to do is we're going to carry the debt on these houses. It's mostly 1-4 family houses that he's got, right? Yeah. We're going to carry the debt on that for probably 2 years. And then at the end of the 2 years, by then, hopefully he's got his commercial property stabilized. It's performing a lot better. And then we can go back to that bank and say, hey, all those houses, can we consolidate that loan and put it on the commercial property instead so that it's just there? And then, boom, his houses are all free and clear again.
Opens it back up.
He could go do it again.
Yeah. This is where it starts to feel a little bit like
Monopoly. Oh, yeah. I do have to say, though, a funny quote that I got from one of my lender friends recently is he asked how much money does he make? And this was a totally different person. This was a totally different scenario. Yeah. But it was, how much money does he make? And the response was, well, he makes enough to live, but not enough to laugh or love. And I was dead.
You're like, got it.
Yeah.
As funny as that is, you know where he's at.
Oh yeah. So, but other cool things that you can do when you're super rich or super experienced, my background, a lot of you might know my background's in private banking and wealth management. I did that for the big banks for a number of years. And something that we used to sell all the time were asset secured lines of credit. Yeah. So if you have stocks, bonds, mutual funds out there, you may want to talk to your asset manager and see if you can get a line of credit against those assets, because that's a perfectly reasonable way to borrow money that's typically very inexpensive. Usually prime minus a certain margin is your rate, and then typically there's no origination fees or annual fees or anything like that. So that's a cool thing to look at. Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, when you're in that top tier, there's usually some pretty creative stuff that you can get into that's very interesting.
Yeah, and to be honest, like these newbies, these middle ground, the experts, it doesn't take as long as you think to grow to this span. So yeah, it may have taken both of those clients that you mentioned 10, 15 years to get there.
Yeah.
But now they've grown a lifelong wealth platform for themselves and their family. And that is honestly why any of us are doing this real estate side of things, is trying to grow this generational wealth. So we really want to be just a piece of the puzzle to get you to those marks and those goals that you have in mind, and connect you with other individuals that are experts in other spaces that can help you grow. But all of it is obtainable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.